everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Zara Kane, and today we're going to be talking about the new Genestealer Codex. Wow, what a surprise. To be honest, I feel like I might be a little bit late to the party here, but you know, fuck it. Anyway, I mean, the book may have only just arrived last weekend, but for me, I'd already had it for about another week and a half before that. I leaked some parts of it online, and I guess the excitement had kind of been and gone for me, you know. And in that time, every other channel out there spurred out their reviews of the Codex, whether even cool players themselves or just generalist 40k commentators, you know, just everyone's had something to say about this. I had people saying to me, you know, when are you going to do more videos about this? It's our time, it's finally come. And I did prepare a load of content. I had so much to say about it, and then I just stopped myself because, you know what? I'm not in a position to tell anyone how to run this army anymore. It's anyone's game now. I'm back at the start, at square one, just like everyone else. So much has changed with how this faction runs that I can't confidently say, okay, here's what's good, here's what's bad, here's how you use these things, you know, because I don't know. I mean, I can guess, sure, this theory, looking at stuff, putting two and two together, but, you know, even if you work out these combos in your head and stuff, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to come together on the tabletop, and that's what genuinely matters. I mean, if I had £1 for every person who gave 40k tactical advice, yeah, it's never actually even played the faction, let alone the game in general, I'd have a lot of money. But anyway, back when I was giving advice about the old Codex, I did so confidently knowing that I had hundreds of games, you know, in 8th and 9th in the bag. I knew the army like the back of my hand. If I said this tactic works, I did so because I'd been there, I'd done that, and I'd tried and tested it time and time again, and it was no longer just an idea, it was like proven in my mind. So I wanted to wait a bit. Let's let the hype die down a bit, get some games in, and then come back with some videos that are based on actual experience, because you can bet your ass that I'll still be playing this faction after the honeymoon period, come rain or shine. I'm in it for the long run, not just for the fucking glory days. I suppose after this weekend, we'll start to see the first genuine indications of this faction's strengths and prospects, as the LVO will be taking place, and those results will start to trickle in, also from other GTs around the globe. I mean, I had the Nottingham GT tomorrow, I had a ticket for it, but the Codex wasn't released in time for me to submit, you know, a list with that new stuff. And come to think of it, if I'd actually submit a list with the old Codex, I probably would have done better because I know it so well and I know how it works. And then second of all, also, I had a tough choice of 3 things to do this weekend. The GT, a big goth metal and fetish event here in London, and a huge rabbit show up north. So it was kind of like, you know, 3 vastly different parts of my personality and interests all pulling me in a different direction at once. So obviously I'm here in London now, so you can guess which one won out. Hopefully with a bit of luck, I'll get to go to the rabbit show on Sunday as well. But anyway, to all you guys taking GSC to LVO and GT, seriously, good luck. Do me proud. Don't try too hard. Remember, it's better to lose in style than to win by being a fucking try-hard cunt, you know. By the looks of it, Tyranids are the major contenders this year with the new Stampede lists. I guess our Day of Ascension lured the big bugs out for some serious biomass consumption. Let me know in the comments if you've been to any tournaments or stuff, you know, whatever. Let me know how it goes for you, because I'm genuinely interested. Now, that's all the small talk. Let's get down to business. So far, I think I've had about 5 or 6 games with the new Codex. I've been up against Orcs twice, Thousand Sons, White Scars, Custodes, and Sisters. In all these games, I kind of just abandoned the idea of winning through points, you know, being a sneaky cunt. I just wanted to focus on doing as much damage as I could and seeing what units could really, you know, perform under those situations. Now, that's all the small talk. Let's get down to business. So far, I think I've had about 5 or 6 games with the new Codex. I've been up against Orcs twice, Thousand Sons, White Scars, Custodes, and Sisters. In all these games, I kind of just abandoned the idea of winning through points, you know, being a sneaky cunt. I just wanted to focus on doing as much damage as I could and seeing what units could really, you know, perform under those situations. There's also the Crossfire rules I've been practicing with. You know, even though I totally understand how it works in theory, I won't deny that it still does boggle my mind a bit when you put it into action, in the way that your movement phases and your shooting phases now need so much more pre-planning. You've got this whole other layer of double thinking when it comes to angles, asking yourself questions like, okay, who's going to be putting the first Crossfire tokens down? Who's going to be firing next to benefit from those tokens? Who's going to be getting on the other side of the enemy to provide those Crossfire lanes to give exposed? You know, where are my buffs coming from? it's a lot to think about. You know, anyone who says it's piss easy, take, you know, they're lying. You've got to fucking know exactly what you're doing, otherwise it just turns into a fucking mess. But anyway, yeah, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's make a nice big list of things that I have positive experience with so far, starting with my personal favourite. Drills. Rock drills are very different to their old counterparts in a way that I find hugely beneficial for one big reason. Now, when you hit with them, you don't have to wound. They auto wound. Simple as that. You don't even have to roll for it. Do you have any idea how shocking that is to opponents whose durability comes from a transhuman physiology type ability? You know, an inbuilt defensive rule that states wound rolls of 1, 2, 3 always fail, or a stratagem or whatever. You know, well, guess what? Now we just skip that step. Oh my god. I used to be terrified of Deathwing Terminators. Now I can't wait to fight them again. At AP -4, you're basically on anyone's inborn, if not just completely boring straight through the armor and fucking killing them. I think these are going to be the most relevant in the Pauper Princess Creed. Hitting on 2s on the charge, hopefully rerolling 1s if you position right. You're going to see the maximum amount of hits possible after Might from Beyond or Our Time is Nigh. You've got to get that sweet 3 swings per model. Twisted Helix's extra strength means nothing if they auto wound. Don't forget, you can also pre-game buff them with the Bifurgus for exploding 6s to hit. I think this is the only situation I'd ever consider bringing Acolytes in groups of 15 rather than 10, because you really want to up the drill count to the max of 6 in the squad. Bear in mind that in my experience so far, these can be very swingy. It's due to how the mortals work. So, you know, when you roll a 6, then you get 2 mortals. If you roll 4 6s, then there's 8 mortals. You know, it could be crazy, but chances are, in my experience so far, you get fucking none, and then you're a bit like, oh, that's not really that great at all. So if you don't get them, your attack's gonna fall flat on its face. That's why you need as many hits as possible. You've got to ramp up that probability. If the opponent makes a load of inborn saves, those single 1 damage attacks can feel quite underwhelming by the time they get through to that point. And then if you don't kill what you're hitting, chances are, if it's something that's decent, which it almost always is, it's going to turn around and just fucking smash you in, and you'll be like, oh, there's a fucking squad gone. So that's not good. I mean, that's the essential defining part of playing Genestealer Cult. It's kill or be killed. You either smash what you're attacking, or you don't, and you flop it, and then you go, well, that squad's gone next turn. Or not even in that turn, in the turnaround of the fight phase. They just turn around and you're dead, and that's it. On the flip side, don't just think about big tough units to attack with these. They're amazing for horde clearance. I mean, remember those mortals just spill over. It's like, you know, you ram your drill into the chest of an orc, you go straight through, and then also you maim 2 unlucky orcs who are on the other side. You know, it's 3 kills for 1 swing, and that is fucking sick. This auto wound feature crops up in a few other places in the Codex too, and it's the first time I've really seen it that prevalent. I'm sure other factions have got access to it somewhere, but I haven't really, you know, seen it before, to be honest. But we've got it loads, and it's weirdly powerful. The other abilities that spring to mind are Twisted Helix, Psychic Power, Mutagenic Deviation, and there's a stratagem called Massed Firearms. Now, Mutagenic Deviation seemed a bit of a downgrade to me at first, and now I've totally changed my mind. Oh my god, I love it. Hit rolls of 6 and melee auto wound. This is how you get relatively lower strength units like Acolytes with basic claws or Purestrains to bring down tougher units. Because that's the kicker, isn't it? You know, you want to hit a Dreadnought or something, and then you'll be wounding on 5s. Well, who cares if a good portion of those attacks just totally bypass that step? We have loads of extra AP now, like the Acolytes, 3 attacks with -2 at base. That's so good. Purestrains, 4 attacks base with -3, hitting on 2s. Again, throw Might from Beyond or the pre-game thing from the Bifurgus, and that is how you ramp these guys into overdrive. One note on this interaction, however, because I did get a bit overexcited at first. When combining exploding 6s and 6s auto wound, those additional hits do not count as 6s for the purposes of the auto wounding thing. They're just regular normal hits that have to go through the strength against toughness step like all of the other wounds. Again, consider throwing this on cutters too. It's great for allowing you to bypass transhuman when hitting chunky boys like Terminators or Custodes, because you can bet your ass they will want to halve your chances with those sort of transhuman strategies. In terms of rock saws, yeah, they're kind of been left in the dust a bit, but I won't deny they still do have a place. I still think, if you're going to have 6 squad of Acolytes with the big tools, having 3 or of cutters or drills. One of those could be a sword squad, because not everything you fight is going to have -1 damage. Sure, it's very prevalent now, but it's not everything in the game. And there is times when you just come in and you think they're going to hit better than cutters, they're still going to do 2 damage, and maybe 2 damage is all you need to clear a squad of intercessors or something like that. They do still do the beef. Now, mass firearms is another great sleeper. In my first game against White Scars last week, I dropped a Contemptor Dreadnought using this with just a bunch of fucking shotgun neophytes. Obviously, it's not as good because they don't have access to AP on those guns, but throwing that buckshot out can be surprisingly deadly. You know, something with 3-up save always fails a certain amount of saves. Let's assume that, you know, you can get Crossfire on the target, maybe exposed to, or just a double make sure, come in from deep strike and get a perfect ambush. So far, I've had some good uses of it, and sometimes it just falls flat without having something like mass firearms laid on top. Don't forget that Rusted Claw can access -1 AP from their psychic power, unescapable decay. So, you know, that alone is another sleeper buff that can allow these crappy small arms like shotguns and hand flamers, you know, go up against stuff that they really have no right to be threatening under normal circumstances. One thing that I find really weird is that despite unit prices going up across the board, my default list almost got cheaper somehow. A squad of 10 Acolytes used to be 150, maybe 160 points for me. It's because I'm no longer wanting the icon. I'm down by 4 hand flamers. I do find that sucks now. The guys with the drills or the cutters or swords, they can't carry a hand flamer as well. But in a way, you know, it helps you slimline things a bit in your head. You maybe don't need 10 hand flamers all the time. Who knows? Sure, Goliath trucks went up by about 15 points, but if I'm only bringing 3, that's still a downturn against the points I spend for all those big teams of Acolytes. Other stuff, let's think. The Purestrains. So far, I've only got good stuff to say about these. There's durability, lethality, speed, all up at a cost that I'm more than happy to pay for them. And the best thing is, they basically operate independently. And that's so rare for this army, because everything else needs something else to function. A character to buff, support from something else, not the Purestrains. They just do what they do. It's so refreshing to have that freedom where you just go, okay, these guys will just go and fight, and they don't need to consider their positioning relative to a Primus or God knows what. By now, you've probably all learned the new basic bitch rush tactic. I'm convinced this was introduced as a direct replacement for my old truck trick. But so far, I'm a little underwhelmed by it. Essentially, you can pay for a single pre-game move upgrade. They came from below that allows, for example, Twisted Helix Purestrains to really gain some ground. That's 9 inches for a pre-move, another 9 inches when you do move, and then an automatic advance of 6 using a stratagem called Rapid Advance. You're basically at the opponent's front line immediately and ready to get fucking stuck in. What I found though is that sometimes there's not necessarily a good target choice for them to get their teeth into from a first turn charge. Back when I used to do this with Acolytes from the trucks, it was totally heavy mining gear like the saws and cutters and shit. You know, I knew that I could grind into a vehicle or a monster with big results. Purestrains don't always have that power. And also, if you go second, then you're probably going to waste that upgrade. I mean, I guess you could get a 9-inch move just up the board a bit, get into the next piece of cover or line of sight blocking terrain. But sometimes 9 inches isn't enough to get them that distance. So you basically just might, you know, oh, well, I won't move them. I'll just keep them behind this wall or something. Theoretically, you can still replicate the old truck trick with this, but the problem is we no longer have easy access to charge and advance buffs from the Clamavus. Twisted Helix doesn't give +1 to advance anymore. It's going to be a risky leap to try and make that ground up with basic troops who can't use the stratagem Rapid Advance. It's for Purestrains and vehicles only. On the flip side, people do seem to be scared of Genestealers when they're on the other end of the table. So if you can wrap and trap something, even if you don't kill whatever it is, they've got the potential to tie up the enemy for a turn. You know, they've got to send something over there to deal with them. That 4-up inborn can be a bit of a pest. Let's move on. Other stuff that I like. Oh yes, our new Fight's Last ability, which used to be, you know, just from mass hypnosis. Now we've got 2 options, which makes us great at controlling the fight phase. The best part is that the new stratagem, coordinated assault thing, is cannot be prevented unless, well, I don't think so anyway. There's probably some way it can prevent it. But all you have to do is hit the target once with something like a Goliath truck autocannon, and then voila, you know, they'll be fighting last when you spend the stratagem on them. It's so important for a faction who would otherwise be losing a squad if you have to multi-charge. You know, you charge there, you fight there, and then they just interrupt over this squad you're fighting with, and they get wiped. So you're losing. But if you're just doing that, it just changes the game completely. Now this means we can combine it with mass hypnosis and basically triple charge without fear of intervention. And even better, if you can drop a marker on a character that's going to worry us, you think might intervene, then you can use another stratagem called covering fire to turn off their heroic intervention as well. So there's like, 3 different ways there to really change how everything comes together. Sure, characters are often hard to hit to get that stratagem off in the first place, thanks to Lookout Sir, but this is where a Sanctus comes in. The Sanctus always hits. If he's got a sniper rifle, you don't even have to fucking roll for it. He just fires and he automatically hits. So you're getting that Crossfire token. Don't even need to roll. Don't forget with the Sanctus, you've also got his ability to turn off auras with a stratagem, Neural Overload. It can really fuck with enemies' plans and buffs. It's great against anything that's giving out Feel No Pains, -1 damage auras, -1 to hit, shit like that. You just turn it all off and then smash the lads, he shoots there, the character turns off all this shit, and then your lads with the fucking swords come in and it's game time. Other stuff that I think has changed. One thing that I find is negative about the way this new codex is put together is the way that unmodified sixes are the new thing. In the old codex, it used to be just hit rolls of 6+ or wound rolls of 6+ when you were considering buffs like, let's say, the old mutagenic deviation. It was wound rolls of 6+. So if you had +1 to wound with something like that, you could bump it up into 5s. Or even in 8th edition, you can get into 4s with certain things. I really feel that's just like there was so much opportunity where you could create some crazy combos and shit. And now it's just like, no, not too much. You can have your fun, but you can't, put 2 and 2 together to make fucking 12. It's a bit of a kicker, I find. Other shit that's on the downside, the amount of shit that doesn't have core. Oh my god, we got Necroned bad. Every time I think, okay, so-and-so should be buffing so-and-so, it's, but they're not core. And you're like, well, so basically I've got fucking Acolytes, I've got Jackals, and I've got Neophytes, and that's basically it. And you're like, well, come on guys, throw us a frickin' bone here, man. I mean, I tried out a very heavy shooting list. I brought as many rock grinders as I could, as many ridge runners as I could, trucks filled with guys with seismic cannons, everything that could get crossfire that I possibly could. And honestly, it felt weak still. And it wasn't even against a faction. I think that was the Sisters game I played. It just didn't feel like it had the fucking balls that I was expecting it to. And so I come back and I see that day, I was like, oh, someone just won a GT with Twisted Helix, playing like 30 Genestealers. I can't remember your name, mate, whoever. If you're watching, well played. It was like 30 Genestealers. It had all the fucking business that I would usually bring in my old school list. And I'm like, maybe that is an indication that now is the time to be playing how I always said we should be playing. The close combat shit, the fast Twisted Helix, stronger, faster, all that shit. All this crossfire thing has led me to believe so far that it's a nice addition when it crops up in a game where you're like, oh, I can get that there, and I can get crossfire, and I can get exposed on it. And the things that I've got will get better, because of that at the time. Instead of going, right, I've got all these things, and they need to be getting these buffs from the crossfire and expose rule to make them work to the best of their ability. I've got to do that, otherwise it's not really going to work. And so you start putting things in positions like, oh, I've got to get these bikers round this group here to make sure I can get the exposed line drawn. When you're not necessarily wanting to get a group where you end up sending them. It might be a bad tactical choice that you end up doing just because you're chasing the idea of getting this +1 to wound mechanic. I just find it's maybe a bit too fancy for its own good. It's nice, but I would not build around it. So far, my experience is telling me, stick to what you know. You've got the guys who have got the tools, got the talent, as Ghostbusters would say. The Acolytes. Aberrants, I've not had a great deal of experience with yet. I only brought them once, and they kind of got into a fight with some orcs, and they kind of got smashed in a return counter-attack thing. So, I'm going to give them more of a go. Other stuff that's really performing. I found the Catamorph very fun to use. His abilities make some quite unique ways you can field him. For example, I wanted to be able to get exposed on his pistols. So the way I had him in a truck, in a rock grinder, so there was I think it was an old war boss, was stood right next to the rock grinder, so I jumped him out of the rock grinder. I moved the rock grinder here so that the orc boss was in the middle. I got, shots from the rock grinder onto the orc boss, so then he had the crossfire. I then shot him with exposed from the Xenomorph on this side, and then I just moved around the other side of him and jumped back in the truck, and he was safe again. And that sort of thing just makes you think, okay, that's cool. That's, nifty is like some sneaky little shit, and it keeps your character safe. But then on other cases, it's like, okay, I've got guys who I think are gonna survive in certain situations and end up just getting fucking smashed all the same. Okay, that's gonna be the end of my video because I need to go out now and I'd rather get pissed and talk about this shit. So, like and subscribe. I just said I wouldn't say that.